Eddie.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Happy Wednesday.
Yes, in the middle of the week.
Yes.
You got in the middle of it. Is this in the way?
We got right in the middle. Nope. I gotta send the invites real quick. You are not in the way at all. Well, happy Hebrews chapter number 2.
Yep. And
Hope you guys had a good day.
yeah, and we're going to continue with Hebrews chapter 2, and it continues with
The word therefore.
therefore.
If you guys notice, the chapter starts with therefore, and that means it's finishing up a sentence. So
Yeah.
it's finishing up chapter 1. So that's kind of fun.
In chapter 1 was how Jesus was greater than the angels.
Yep.
And then, so therefore, now verses 1 through 4 talks. It's like a warning about neglecting the message. If the message in the Old Testament given by the angels was important, this is much more important because it's given by Christ. And so, the message of the gospel is declared first by the Lord, it says, and attested by us, by those who heard. And the guys who are writing this are actually saying we were there hearing directly from the apostles on this. And also that signs and miracles and stuff like that were giving proof. There was proof of that gospel. And so so what's being said 1 through 4 is not to neglect what's going on there, or not to let's say drift away. We don't want to drift away from that.
Don't drift away.
Don't drift away. And so verses 5 through onward, well, not all the way onward, but 5 through a ways down here, it gets back to talking about angels again. And here it's talking about that Jesus, even though he's higher than the angels, subjected himself to be lower than the angels for a while. He became man. And I think you had something on, was it?
I have notes.
Notes? Yes.
I listened to a couple talks today, and it was kind of interesting saying that how, for a time, like you just said, Jesus became lower than the angels. And the reason he did that, though, was to fulfill a purpose, which was because angels can't die. And so Jesus had to die in order to save us and take on that sin and save us. And so in order to die, he had to become a man like us. And so at that time, he was lower than the angels because then he was like a man. And so he was lower for a little bit, but he became man because he had to, because you guys have heard the penalty for sin is death. And so Jesus had to take on all of our sin and therefore die in order to restore our salvation and righteousness with God. So, which is amazing. And so Jesus did become lower than the angels for a little bit while that was going on for our sake. But then he, of course, restored with his resurrection, restored his rightful place up in heaven at the right hand of the Father.
That's good. Okay.
But that was pretty wild, though, the difference of how angels can't die, so Jesus had to die for us.
Well, and ultimately, man is what sinned, and it had to be a man that paid for that sin. But sinful man can't pay for it because you're in debt already, you have nothing to give. So
no, and that's kind of like what you said last night, how in the old temples and stuff, or in the temple, there was no chairs because they were constantly doing sacrifices for sin because it never ended. So that's like what you just said.
Yeah, and the priests were sinners. So and then, but what's neat is it talks about that a little bit more. And going down to verse 14, Jesus shared in being flesh and blood. It says that he likewise took part of the same things that we go through. Let's see. That through death he might destroy the power of death. But he had to become a human being, as you just said, flesh and blood. And what's neat about that, Jesus, let's see here, says he had to be made like us in every way. And actually, a couple chapters over, it says he's like us in every way except for sin. So he felt all the pain we felt, the sufferings and things like that. Anything we could humanly go through, the temptations, we saw he was... we saw the temptations in the wilderness and things like that. Jesus had to go through the most rigorous stuff that all the human beings go through, yet he didn't fall into sin. And so here he's becoming the perfect high priest. And actually, to put this in another way, think about going to court, the court system in America. one of the number one mistakes to do is represent yourself in a court, especially a court of crime. That's like a no because you're going to lose.
Right.
So that's why we have mediators who come in for us and help us with the cases. The same thing when we come before God and finally in judgment, we can represent ourselves or we can have a representative. If we have a representative ourselves, then what God's going to be able to do is say, well, the Ten Commandments, this, and this, did you make all this and this? And if we've messed up even in a tiny bit of that, then we don't get in. I mean,
because if you break one, you break them all.
That's right. The way the law is set up is if you break one law, one piece of it, you break the whole law. And so, or we could choose to have a representative, which in this case would be Christ. And he's our advocate. And so, not only is he representing us, he'll be saying, as our high priest, he's representing us, and he's going to be able to say, these guys are clear of charges. I apply my good works, my righteousness to them. That's how they are now. They are righteous. So,
and he took the punishment for them.
He did.
For us.
He did. He took the punishment for our sins, and he became our righteousness. So right here it's talking about our faithful high priest in the service of God. And so it's a neat way to think about it. And it helps us understand why Christ, why we need Christ, and why Christ is better. So it's pretty neat.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, you guys, we actually made our 555 tonight. Woohoo!
We did, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, to stay on track, tomorrow will be chapter 3.
Yep.
And tomorrow's Thursday. We'll see you then.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Nice, short, and sweet.
Yoo-hoo.
Mwah, 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 mwah. Bye.
Bye.